this is what I want to do for the rest of my life. In my senior year, I just said to myself, I don't need to be doing this. I am going to be a college dropout. This was my calling.
Wow. Hey everyone, welcome back to Dine Grind, your go-to podcast celebrating the passion, craft, and hustle behind food businesses. I'm your host, Daniel Shemtob, chef and entrepreneur, two-time Food Network All-Star winner, here to dive deep into inspiring stories from incredible guests across the culinary world. Before we dive in, I want to share something personal. Early in my culinary career, I had a serious slip and fall accident in the kitchen, leaving me with tens of thousands of dollars of medical bills, and I still deal with that pain today. A profound experience that made me change how I think about comfort and safety at work. Out of that experience, with one of the world's top orthopedic surgeons and my high school best friend, who's also a restaurateur, we created Snibs. Our shoes are designed specifically to support and elevate hardworking professionals who spend countless hours on their feet. Sponsoring this podcast was a natural fit because at its core, Snibs is all about honoring the passion, dedication, and tireless effort of people in hospitality. You can check us out at snibs.co. All right, Nancy, I am so excited that you're joining me today. You're an iconic figure who has shaped American dining like no other. Founder of legendary establishments like Brea Bakery and Mozza, Nancy has redefined what artisan bread, gourmet pizza, and authentic hospitality can mean. From transforming Los Angeles culinary scene in the 90s with their groundbreaking sourdough to building an international restaurant empire, her relentless pursuit of perfection and innovation has earned her nearly every culinary accolade imaginable, including multiple James Beard Awards, Michelin stars. Today, we'll deeply talk about her personal moments behind the stories, careers, risks, rewards, chasing perfection, and the passion that continues to drive her forward. Nancy, you're one of my favorite people in the culinary industry, and I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Yes.
Into your new house.
My new house, yes. For those of you who don't know, we did lose my home recently in the Palisades fire, so we are just getting acclimated here. This set might change a little bit throughout the next few episodes as well. So I wanted to dive in to a story that I read all about, but I want to hear it from you, which is the dorm room, where you started. You know, I feel like it's such a gift to find your passion so early in life, but the difference between most people is they're scared of that uncover. You know, like they're scared to find what really moves them. And for you, it almost felt like it was just a natural fit. And I just wanted to kind of take me back there. You know, I want to know what kind of hair you had at the time. I want to know what you were wearing just because I'm so intrigued by your fashion. But I would love to know what was like back then, and where was that moment where you felt passion just kind of run through you?
Well, first of all, I think that it's a gift at any point in your life if you recognize your passion, right? And as you said, it's very lucky when you do, especially early on in your life.
Sure.
And I clearly remembered the difference between the family that I grew up in and the family that was, a few of the families that were in my neighborhood. And one big difference was, I know that my father got up every morning, got dressed, and went to do what he generally loved to do. And that was, he loved being a lawyer and he loved being a trial lawyer.
Okay.
As opposed to a few of my friends down the street that you knew that every day that father got up, went to work at a job he hated every single day and couldn't wait to get home, take his tie off, his shoes off, sit in his Barker lounger and turn on sports. And from a very young age, I said, I will never wake up in the morning and hate what I need to do that day or what brings in the money that day. And I never had to. And that is really, really lucky, fortunate. And if anyone is as fortunate as I was so early on, they too would realize what a gift that is. So I want to make that clear that it doesn't necessarily have to be at the beginning of your life. At any point in your life, when you find what is more or less what you were made to be here for. And that's what I felt like. I was here to be in hospitality. And I recognized it so clearly from the beginning. So in 1974, I moved up to Sonoma County to go to college. I went to Sonoma State.
Okay.
Entered as a political science major for whatever reason, because I did.
Okay.
Quickly changed. Well, I know I grew up in a family that was very political, so it seemed like a great, major. Quickly changed that to liberal studies, but really at that time I had no idea what I wanted to do in life.
Okay.
But one thing I knew is that I could recognize, or I had the ability to recognize, across the dorm dining room, a very unique looking, very handsome student that I needed to figure out a way to get to know. And I found out that he was also cooking in the college dorms.
Wow.
Those dorms were newly built, and they, at that time, had the budget to have what would be considered a normal dining menu, and also, because it was Sonoma State, also known at that time as Granola State, a vegetarian menu. And he was a vegetarian, and he was in charge of that menu to accommodate the vegetarians that were living in the dorm.
Okay.
So I got up the courage to walk up to him and let him know that I love to cook, and I didn't love to cook. I had never cooked before. I really had no interest in food or cooking. Told him that I loved to cook, that I too was a vegetarian, and I was. That morning I became one, so it was true. I was a vegetarian, and I'd love to work in the kitchen.
Wow.
And he hired me.
Okay. So your confidence was always strong, even if you were.
Well, I don't know if it was that strong, but love makes you confident, right?
Fair enough. Okay, yeah.
So I immediately went out and bought my first cookbook, which I still have.
Okay.
It's on my bookshelf.
Which cookbook?
And it's called Cooking Creatively with Natural Foods.
Okay.
And it was, again, we're talking the 70s, so it was pages filled of all of the unappealing vegetarian offerings of that time, meaning everything had too much cheese, too many sesame seeds, too many lentils, everything was kind of heavy, brick-like, and brown. And that's what I bought, and I started cooking out of it. And when I talk about, first, before I realized that it was the food aspect of hospitality that was what I was meant to really, really do,
Sure.
It was the feeling of bringing out the platters of lentil loaf or melted cheese on broccoli, and people being so grateful and then coming up to me and saying, that was so delicious. And it made me just feel so good.
Yeah.
But then there was the other part that my mother loved to say, I told you so. Very early on in life, she had enrolled me in an art class because she thought that the shapes that I made with clay were just so intriguing that I needed to really hone in on those skills, right?
Okay.
And she said, I know, and I can tell you need to do something with your hands. And it was that combination of making things that people loved and using my hands that I knew that this was my calling.
Wow.
And within
Visceral.
those, yes,
It's
oh
very,
yeah,
it's like,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I also remember so clearly standing in this dorm kitchen, very clinical, not like the kitchens kind of today that have a little bit more personality, a little bit more texture, a little bit more life. This was simply stainless steel and fluorescent lights. But I remember exactly standing behind the counter, and it was the two shelves. So it was the work surface and the shelf above with the, pans, and looking off and thinking, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Wow. What a moment.
What a moment, what a gift.
And you can remember the exact moment.
The exact moment, the position I was standing in, the look in my eyes,
Wow.
The tilt of my head, like the whole thing. And I made it through school for 3.5 years, but finally in my senior year, in the library, struggling with some sort of paper, I just said to myself, I don't need to be doing this. There's nothing I want to do with a college degree. I want to cook. I am not doing this paper. I am going to be a college dropout.
Amazing. Wow. I mean, that is so cool to hear. And I think there's something, and there's a theme that I've noticed with what I've seen from the outside is that you've been able to, it feels like to me, redefine yourself. And then it's that commitment to that redefinement that is just so powerful. Because you could easily say, oh, I've tried cooking and, it wasn't for me, or this, or I like it, but I'm not sure. But I mean, it feels like to me, you just jump in the deep end. And I think that that's what passion feels like, which is it should feel scary. Before I filmed this podcast, I was a little nervous and I said, hey, this is a good feeling. When's the last time you felt nervous? I know what I'm doing every day. It's the moments where you put yourself a little bit out there that I think feels so rewarding.
And also back then, there were many things that were of the time that are not of this time. They're not of this time because things move too quickly.
Yeah.
Social media has really changed our lives.
Yeah.
But back then, because of just what it was like back then, there was a certain amount of patience. So I recognized, okay, this is what I want to do. And I thought about the path of what it would take to get there. And it was a slow path, but I wasn't in a hurry. I didn't need to be a Food Network star immediately.
Sure.
Or I didn't need to have a chain of restaurants. I recognized that it was going to be something that was slow, something that was very methodical, and knowing who I was, I would get there, but it would take a lot of work. And really, that's how it was.
Were there moments in that confidence or in that new experience where you just kind of thought maybe I shouldn't be doing this, or
Never.
did you have no doubt?
Never. And it was interesting, or it is interesting that just the other day, one of our new hires, very young cook, I think he's just finishing up with cooking school. I think he was in the military. And he approached me and said, can I ask you a question? It's like, sure, and I expected I was going to hear like, what's your favorite restaurant in Los Angeles? Or what's in your refrigerator, And he asked me if there was ever a moment that I second guessed or regretted what my decision to be a whatever I am, cook, restaurateur. And I said, never. And it's the truth. I never felt that it wasn't the right decision. There were few places that I worked at that I knew were not the right fit.
Sure.
But other than that,
it
wasn't that I regretted what I was doing. I knew that I had to be in a place that spoke about who I was and my philosophies.
That's beautiful. So I don't know this because I wasn't really around in the culinary scene at that time, but I imagine as a trailblazing woman in your early years, was it more or less difficult? Because I just feel like I remember when I first started in kitchens, like granted it was my own kitchen basically, like there was a kind of level of toxicity. Like we would yell at each other. I remember when we had an intern on the truck, and it's a terrible story, but I remember my chef at the time didn't like the way it looked and he threw it back at him and he said, hey, make this again. And it was playful. Like he was kind of like he's 4 years younger than us and he was kind of a punk who was in school getting in trouble. And that's how we connected with him. But that energy was rough. Like I remember I wasn't empowering my people. I was yelling at them. And I think it was like this Gordon Ramsay kind of craziness. And I felt like that's what I saw a lot in my older chefs. And I noticed it was kind of troubling. And I'm just wondering if that was ever a deterrent in your career or if you just made you more powerful through the process.
No, you know what? Lucky enough, I have no horror stories.
None?
None, not one. Because pretty much, besides a few summers in between school when I wasn't yet a college dropout and I got jobs over the next couple summers in small little cafes, pretty much my resume is very, very small. I started out at a restaurant called 464 Magnolia in Larkspur in Marin County.
Okay.
And it was a chef-owned restaurant, college-educated, self-taught, cooked out of cookbooks,
That's cool.
very progressive. That person's not yelling at anybody. From there, I went and worked with Jonathan Waxman at Michael's Restaurant in Santa Monica, which is still there. This is 1979. And then in 1982, I opened Spago with Wolfgang Puck.
Wow.
I was his pastry chef. He too
Nice
is
guy.
not a yeller, screamer, plate thrower, abuser. So I never had to weather that kind of a kitchen, which is lucky. Also, in California, I had so many women mentors. Like if you were to ask me back then, some of my favorite restaurants, say in the 80s, right? Without trying to pick women out, I would have named you all my favorite restaurants, and then I would have kind of scratched my head and said, oh, wait, these are all women-owned restaurants,
That.
So there were a lot of role models. I certainly was not a trailblazer in that way because there were a lot of women. Now, that's not true around the country.
Sure.
Around the country, there weren't as many as in California. But in California, we kind of took it for granted, especially between San Francisco and Los Angeles.
I love
a lot of restaurants. I know.
We have when people talk trash about LA's dining scene, it's totally wrong.
Finally, LA, and now when I say finally, I would say within the last 5 years, all of a sudden, people are coming to LA to eat again, where they could have for a very long time, but what they didn't have that San Francisco or New York or Chicago had is we didn't have, and still don't have, the variety of, or the choices of 3-star restaurants.
Yeah.
But we always had great food that is finally being recognized as great food that doesn't necessarily have a star or pretension. But now, you see more and more people are turning to Los Angeles as a place for inspiration.
Yeah, I mean,
you don't have to defend this food seat here anymore.
You don't. I mean, I saw the article that we have the best bagels. Now we're about to have the best pizza. I was like, move on over. Yeah, really good. Okay, so what I want to talk about next is there's a moment in your career where you had a failure. And I don't know if you want to call it a failure, but I would say anytime you're closing a restaurant, because I know how much work it is to build a restaurant, and I've closed a few myself, and every time letting go of that staff, it's heartbreaking. And I wanted to talk about, because it feels like to me, you had a peak, which is Campanile. Yeah, did I say it right?
Close enough. Campanile, but
Campanile.
It's close enough.
Campanile, where you lived above the restaurant, you owned it with your ex-husband. It was a family experience from what I got to see, and I talked to a few friends who got to go there. It was a very special place, and you built it out of your heart, it seemed like, right? Yeah, and so I would love to know how you can go from losing that restaurant that you walked away from, right?
Yeah, so it didn't close, remember? It was more because my marriage was splitting up, and it just wasn't working, having a divorced couple be the leaders of a
I can imagine
restaurant.
It might be entertaining, but it might not be. Right. Good for you. And so I guess wondering how, because then the next step was it a break, and then coming back and becoming this powerhouse and just kind of moving forward so much stronger. And I think for myself, and I imagine for a lot of our viewers who have gone for their dream and maybe not been successful on the first time, because we know it's a journey. We just talked about how you said, as long as it's going to take a while, but you're doing the things that need to matter today. How did you bounce back? And how did you do it so well?
Well, simply because I knew that I wasn't ready to retire. I wasn't ready to find another career. I needed to leave the restaurant, for lack of a better description, for my own sanity, right? So I knew that. And it was bittersweet. But it had to be done. But I also knew that I needed to find the next venture. And at the time, I thought that what I was going to do was going to be something much smaller than Campanile. Maybe something that had myself as the only cook in the restaurant, something small, right? And my vision was a fraction of what the Osteria is today, meaning it was going to be a little mozzarella bar with a few items that mozzarella was going to be the star, and I was going to compose a few little things that went with mozzarella, and I'd be able to talk with my customers that were sitting at the bar, and that was going to be it. And as soon as I had mentioned this idea of my next venture with actually Mario Batali, he immediately wanted to be a part of it, and it changed from that little one-woman show to an empire.
Do you think it was in the stars, or do you think you willed it? Like, did you, was this, it just had to be this way, like it was meant to be? Or do you think that you were like, this is my vision, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to create and expand upon it? Because they're different, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think that either would have been fulfilling.
Sure, yeah.
Right? I was headed with nothing concrete. It wasn't like I was building this place or actually ready to look for a location. It was still a dream. And that I got talked out of that dream and into more of a fantasy, right?
Yeah.
Do I regret that it wasn't that one-woman show? No. I've met some great people. I've given jobs to hundreds of people. Sure. I've opened some restaurants around the world. But as you were saying earlier, you never get over just that sadness of having to close a restaurant. And I had to close 2 this year. And you have to recognize when they're not working. I had one in Saudi Arabia, and I had one in London.
Okay.
And both were management deals with hotels. And both of them just weren't the right fit. And so I had to close them. And you always feel badly because put so much of yourself into them. The year before that, I really had a very strong connection. I don't know if you knew that I had a restaurant at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel
of course,
called the Barish. And that was a very strong connection because I was able to name it after and pay tribute to my mother's side of the family, who were farmers from Canada. And their last name was Barish.
Okay.
And I was able to just sort of just use that history as a beautiful restaurant. And it was sort of the same kind of deal. It was a couple-year management deal that they didn't renew, and I had to give that whole big piece of me up on that one. I think that's probably the one that was the saddest for me to have to close. But and then you open another, and you know what? Maybe I'm going to bring, maybe when I open another steakhouse or something like that, I'll be able to bring that Barish name back. Cool. Use some of those graphics. I've got these great old photographs of my great uncles and their cattle, and so who knows?
I love that. Yeah, I got to go there. I didn't know I was looking at photos of your uncle.
Yes.
That's very cool. Yeah.
Eli and Ben.
Okay, Eli's my middle name. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, I mean, I totally get that. What I can admire in that is that it's your ability to move forward, right? And it's like you feel the pain. You probably learn something from each one of those experiences, but you're not going to let it stop where you're going because how? It's just and I know the answer to this because I know you so well, but I think for the viewers at home, it'd just be so fun to hear. But what does the thought of retirement mean to you?
Retirement is something that's really something that has a negative connotation to me. Just like when a journalist asks, what do you think the latest food trend is? It's negative to me,
like that question.
Right? Because it means it's short lasting. Trend means something that's here today, gone tomorrow.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so, it's sort of like a word that I try to avoid.
Yes. Fair enough. Yeah. And I think I don't know. I mean, obviously I'm far from that moment, but it's just like, I love what I do. I can't imagine suddenly not loving what I do.
Exactly. Because you wake up and you do what you're going to do. My question then is, retire from what?
Yeah. From what?
Like, retire from life? It's like a question that you don't know because there's nothing to retire from. There's nothing for me to stop. So sure, I'm not on the line anymore. It's not because of age. It stopped a while ago because I was not dependable, in a sense. The staff fired me. It's like every Wednesday, you call out, we can't keep you here anymore, But yes, probably age 2 slows you down. You're not as fast but there's other parts of the business that are age appropriate, time appropriate, right? There's a whole lot of mentoring to do. There's a whole lot of collaboration to do. I mean, there's so many aspects of the business that there isn't anything to retire from.
Yeah, and if you were still on the line today, we probably wouldn't get to do our footwear collaboration.
No, we
which
wouldn't.
we'll talk
Yeah.
about in just a second. I do want to share that the first time, I never shared this with you, but the first time I went to Mozza, you were behind the mozzarella
See,
bar.
there you
It
go.
was like 2008, 2009. It was, honestly, when I moved to LA, I was so broke. And
Where are you from? But
just Orange County.
Oh, okay.
But I moved to LA when I was 17, broke as hell, and I never could go out for dinner. And I saved a bunch of money to go there because everyone said that this is the best restaurant in town. And I remember it's still impossible to get a reservation there, but back then it was very, very hard. Like I couldn't even try. And we walked in and I sat at the bar and I had your burrata with the bacon and the caramelized shallots.
Yeah, good for you.
Oh my, I still get goosebumps now, even talking about that dish. There was something about the salty and the fat and the crispiness of the bread. And it was just, I figured anyone that can take, those are good ingredients, right? Like they're powerful ingredients.
Right.
But anyone that can make those ingredients feel light and refined and still true to the ingredient. It was such a beautiful composition of food. And that was before I worked in the culinary industry. True, like that was right before I got into the food industry. So I don't know if I want to say you were one of my inspirations to get in there, but I really did. I admired that moment and seeing you behind the bar, and I could feel your buzzing. And it's the same thing for me. If I'm doing a dinner party here tonight, and the moment where the table is covered with food and everyone's happy and they're just looking ecstatic. I don't even need the recognition. I just know that that's like, I just love that feeling so much. And during COVID, it was like ripped away from me.
Yeah.
You remember it? It was so
Well,
bad.
it was awful because, in order to, not only, I mean, we kept our businesses for whatever way we could keep them going because there were a lot of people, right, that didn't have the proper paperwork to get them whatever little bits of loans that came through, right, or subsidy, So we had to keep the restaurants open for those members of our staff, but we all know it was all in that takeout form. And wow, when you saw that dining room full of plastic boxes, right? And you never got the satisfaction of being able to look into someone's eyes that said, "Thank you for dinner. It was delicious. Can't wait to be back."
Yeah.
It's just all the food going out in these plastic containers. I'll never get over
so bad.
those days. That was awful.
That was awful.
Because, I've been doing, out of that came something that actually has a positive outcome because we have to always find a silver lining in everything we do or happens to us, right?
Sure.
And the silver lining from those 2020, 21 days was that, all of the charitable work that I try to do and be a part of that usually takes place in, say, large format hotels and things like that, because nobody wanted to be inside and to eat with that many people, sort of transitioned to more intimate experiences. And I sort of participated in that kind of venue in my backyard.
I know.
So I started doing things in my backyard for charities.
Okay.
And I still do them to this day a lot because a lot of, credit card companies and things like that are realizing that their customers want experiences, whatever that means. And so they want to be able to offer that to their customers. And so I do a lot of that in my backyard and setting it up, and then kind of being in the kitchen and then walking out when everybody, as you're saying, is sitting down and there's food everywhere. It's like my backyard never looks so good.
So good. I've been to your house for, I think, so, in the process of, in the process of the shoe design, I came and dropped off shoes. We looked at shoes.
Oh, and were we doing an event?
You were doing an event, and I couldn't believe I saw you and Liz in there grinding out all these different ingredients. You're tasting things, and there's all these people in your house, and you seem so zen. I was like, wow, that was. I don't know if I would experience that same thing with strangers coming to home. Maybe family's different, but it felt like you were at your house. Like, yeah, and you have a very beautiful home, and it's very welcoming. Yeah, all the cookbooks and all the mixers and all the baking area. It's very cool. It's very you. Speaking of which, I'm going to ask you a question that I wouldn't like being asked. And so
You would like or
I
wouldn't like?
wouldn't like being
Uh-oh.
asked, but it's because how do you even answer it? But one thing about you, so if I ever say, hey, Snibs is working with Nancy, I'm working with Nancy or whatever, the first thing everybody says is, there is no one I've met who's more authentic than Nancy.
Wow.
I know, right? I mean, to me, that's an honor because you get what you see and you're real, you're raw. And I think in fashion, it's very rare. Like I feel like I have some of those similar things, but I don't find myself buying what everyone else is buying. I don't
Right.
follow trends. And so I want to know how that plays a part in all of this. And were you always like this when you were little? Were you picking colors and cool things from your? No. So this happened.
You know, I'll tell you, that happened sort of much later in life.
Okay.
And look at, we got to lay the cards on the table. You have to be able to afford that. Well,
Sure.
It's not everything.
I
You have
don't
to look
know. I
at.
mean,
Not
yeah,
you can still be that way, but I really feel like it came from the way that I think about food.
Wow.
You know, and the layering of flavors and textures, you know, sort of like, you know, you open up your pantry, right? And you see all these things and it's how you put them together. And I really do feel like that about my closet. You know, I love to open it up and, you know, and sometimes I'll think like, what did I ever wear with those pants? I really liked that, but I can't remember what it was because it's always something new. But it's so kind of a funny thing to say, but I really think about my closet as my pantry. And I love to have the selection of oils and vinegars and salts because they all have a specific use. And that's even how I buy clothes. It's like something I might buy and I won't wear it for 8 months because it just never fit in. But it's there and I know it's there and I get to pull it at the right time.
Wow. I love that. I think that's the best answer I could have ever imagined. That's really cool. I want to look at my closet like a pantry as well. But it's true because it is about, you know, when you make a really good dish, there's different textures. There's umami, there's acid, there's sweet, there's salty. And I think with clothes, like I can wear like something kind of basic, but like I want depth. I want like, you know, umami in an outfit. I don't know, you know, and so it's pretty cool. Okay.
But you want that personal touch to it, you know?
You do.
Right?
Yeah. Also, it's you know, I know clothes are just clothes, and I lost all my clothes, and I've been through it, and it's fine. I got over it. I'll get over it. But I think there's something about each thing is picked by you, and it's thought about by you, and then it's not only that too. Like this pant, they can sell it to 100 different people. Everyone is going to wear it with a different shirt, a different pair of pants, and it's like, what do you combine it with that makes it special?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what do you not add to it? So, you know, like I think of all the things about cooking and all the things about getting dressed in the morning, right? So when you think of yourself, like I try to think of myself as a cook that has restraint. You're like, I know where to stop. And you know when you go eat somebody's food and they just don't know, it's, you know, it goes on and on and on. Or there's all these things that you wouldn't really even be able to taste that they're there. It's the same thing about getting dressed in the morning.
I love that. Well, so, and that I guess makes me not surprised. So we designed a shoe together.
Yep.
And it's coming out.
And it was a long process.
It was a long process.
And we were both very patient.
We were. You were very patient. I really appreciate that.
No, but so were you. And that's, you know, I was talking to on a group, what do you call it, Zoom group, something, you know, that Liz and I are working with a food company, right? And sort of somebody saying about the difficulty in creating something. And I think one thing that Liz and I both have, and I think it's a gift, is realizing when we're not there yet, what, let's say in a dish, and also no matter how much effort and no matter how much time, knowing that we're not there and not saying, okay, I'm tired, this is it, it's great, you know, knowing that. And that's the same with that shoe. How many incarnations of that shoe did we come to? How many details, right? But in the end, we got a great shoe.
An amazing shoe. And now that I know a little bit about your thought process on fashion, because I know we've talked about both design in a macro and in a micro when it comes to the footwear, but there are a lot of textures on that shoe. And there's that nice nubuck, there's the kind of really cool textured toe cap. There's the outsole designed on a
Right.
pasta dish that we had at your restaurant.
I know.
It's such a special shoe, but you're special. And it feels like it was meant to be in this way. And I'm beyond excited for the world to see it. My wife's been wearing it. I know you've been wearing it. Liz has been wearing it. And
when is the world going to wear it? In 3 months, did you say?
The world is going to be wearing it at the end of the year. So a Q4, there's going to be 3 colors. Patience, exactly. And I think, I would love to leave it with this, but where I felt most inspired today, and I think the thing that I just got to keep remembering is it's not a race. If you're on the journey, that's all there is.
Yeah.
And I think with our footwear, with life, with trying to be the chef, trying to be a restaurateur, and for all those out there just hustling and working so hard in an industry that sometimes doesn't give back in the way it should, just look for those moments along the way, the smiles, the vibes, find that culture, and don't forget that the closet is just like a pantry.
Yeah.
Nancy, I'm so glad that we got
Don't eat your clothes.
Don't eat your clothes unless they're edible, which might be a different kind of party.
And don't wear your olive oil and vinegar.
Yeah, okay, good. Fair enough. All right, Nancy, now is the time where we do our rapid fire questions. I wonder how many of these I can guess that I know answers of, but let's go ahead. All right. All right, so would you do an omakase tasting or a la carte menu?
A la carte.
A la carte, okay. Why?
I'm 70 years old, right? Now, there's a lot of people that eat omakase at 7 years old. But what I'm trying to say is that I need a few bites of one thing. But after
it's a lot.
Several, I get lost.
Fair enough. Aged wine or craft cocktail?
Neither.
Neither, okay. Front of house or back of house?
Back of the house.
Amen. Dessert, or would you rather have an extra savory plate?
Savory, please.
Okay. Smash burger or full-size patty?
Controversial, but a full-size patty, if you cook it right. I mean, for me, extra, extra rare. Well charred, extra rare.
Yum. Okay. And New York style slice or Neapolitan?
Ooh, that's another. I'm going to say, let's say Neapolitan for now, only because I just had Franco Pepe, my favorite Neapolitan area, Campagna area pizza chef, and it's in my mouth. But New York slice, I really love, and I got to give you my slice of the moment, which is La Industrie.
La Industrie, oh my
love
God,
them,
so
love them,
good.
love them. I didn't grow up in that culture, and so I don't really understand all New York slice.
Sure.
But La Industrie,
it's so good.
Up there.
Oh, yeah. Did you have the dessert, the pistachio gelato too?
Oh, yeah, everything. And we've done a pop-up with them twice here.
Oh, I didn't know that. You do so many pop-ups. You're like the queen of amazing collaborations. Okay, Michelin fancy or Michelin hole in the wall?
Michelin, I gotta say hole in the wall.
Yeah, okay. And then last question, bagel with lox or bagel, egg, and bacon?
Just a bagel.
Just a plain bagel? No jam, no butter, no nothing?
Well, I'll have some cream cheese.
Okay, fair enough, cream cheese. All right, thanks again for tuning into Dine and Grind. Remember, this podcast is made possible by my own brand, Snibs Shoes. Born from a personal experience in the kitchen and crafted along industry experts. Snibs exists to uplift and protect those who spend their days on their feet. Until next time, stay inspired.